Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask the School OT. We're going to be taking a bit of a break today from talking about assistive technology and address more printing, more handwriting. So more of these of a variety of videos will be coming out, and if you like them, please subscribe and also visit AskTheSchoolOT.com. It's still under construction, but I'm adding more information all the time. So today what we want to talk about is printing. I'm not going to get into cursive, not going to get into anything too fancy, just simple printing. And what I want us to focus on is the overall readability of a student's work. So we're going to be addressing my top 3 bad habits that are going to affect a student's readability. Okay, so we're only talking about 3. There are others, and I might just touch on them, but what I want to do is really focus on just these top 3 issues because I think they negate the student's overall readability the most. And the first one is lack of space between words. It seems like right now the majority of my students in the population that I see, they're kids with ADHD, some impulsivity, and then you throw some motor issues on top of that, but they've just developed a few bad habits. And one is this sort of stream of consciousness with their writing where there's absolutely no space between the words. And I'm going to show you some work samples, but I want to go through my top 3 first. The second is poor spelling. If you take the lack of space between words and add to it a student who is a terrible speller, it's a recipe for disaster for their overall readability. The last one that really impacts that overall readability is unconventional letter formation. So I wrote this with all my letters in a bottom to top formation. So you'll see things where instead of top to bottom, you know, for E, they get these strange, was that a G? Was that an E? You know, T, F. There's just always these strange ways that these kids have learned how to make these letters, and it's a very, very difficult habit to break. Besides the bottom to top, there's like a simplified version, and I see that a lot with like the RNHM, where they have not learned to go down, up, and over. They haven't learned that pattern. It's just up and over. Then sometimes they throw that, you know, the little line at the top. So their H's start to look like this, their N's look like this, their R's look like this, and you can't really tell the difference. Is this, you know, is this a Y? Is this an R? What is this? What are they trying to write? So it's this kind of simplified, hurried version of these letters too, where it might just be, you know, M, N, R, and you're just not sure what they're trying to say. And you also see that with like an A, a D, and a G, not just that they've learned it in an unconventional way, or that it could be a simplified version, but also that it could be incomplete. So an A, is that a U? Is that an A? Because they're not closing it up at the top. Same with G's, or, you know, D's backwards. Is that a 2? You know, what are we doing? So it's a lot of reteaching with these kids, and depending on how old they are, it is really hard to break this habit, but it's possible. But that's my third of my top 3 that's going to impact readability. I'm going to show you an example here real quick. Let's zoom in. This is one of my most recent work samples for this student. And so we can see he's got all 3. He has a lack of spacing between his words. He's got very, very poor smelling. The boy went to the phone to call grandma because his pet, oops, Silverback. And then I was like, whoa, what were we saying? And the funny thing was he could dictate it back to me, but it had nothing to do with kind of what the associated letters were going on here. So wrote, and then paper, I hate my mom. So this is a little guy that's got some ADHD, and I think he had a little bit of an emotional thing going on that day. But then, you know, we can see I kind of tried to write what he wrote. So this is one of his latest ones, and I'm going to show you the difference. We work on a lot, again, with just trying to do a lot of front loading to space between their words, write a line, skip a line. So the student's in 3rd grade, so right now in their classroom, standard notebook paper is the customary paper that they're using. And you can see this is, again, we're just working on each one of those things. So the spacing, We came down, then we worked on some individual letter formation and some of those unconventional patterns. And, and the spelling is something that I'm working on in collaboration with his his intervention specialist, excuse me. So here's that like long stream again where he wasn't spacing, but other here it was a little bit better. It's the spelling that was negating the readability. But you see, those are the top three here. Now, what I want to show you is one of the last things that we talk about when I'm addressing this issue. Let me zoom out. Is I supplement a lot of the handwriting. Now he's in 3rd grade. We supplement a lot of the handwriting re-instruction with assistive technology. So with this student, we're working out a lot, or I'm working with him a lot with like the read and write for Chromebook program. So we do speech to text, word prediction, and like the proofreading a lot. So you can see from my notes here, this is dictated. This is what he wrote from a dictated model. That's why the spelling is so good. And you can also see him, he gets more consistent with like the spacing between his words. Still have to cue him on like the conventions, and you can see that the unconventional letter formation is there, and it's still negating the overall readability. But when you take away that layer, the increased cognitive layer, like here he's just copying. So the writing can be a little bit better, whereas when they had the increased cognitive load of composing, trying to figure out how to spell it, and then forming the letters, spacing them, and then you add ADHD on top of that, and the lack of impulse control, and that's when, again, we have more of this when it comes to an independent writing sample. So some other issues that'll also affect, and I'll talk about these on a different posting, but you do have inconsistent letter size, the issues with like pencil to paper pressure, if the student who writes too wispy, too lightly, the ones that write too hard, letter reversals, and then when a student has lack of boundaries, like they don't use the left hand and the right hand margins, and the writing just kind of gets to the end of the page and goes, and writes down instead of going to the next line. But those, tend to not be the clusters that I see. The clusters that I tend to see the most are that lack of spacing, the issues with spelling, and then the letter formation. So number one, again, we try to deal with the spacing. That's the first thing I try to do is with all the students is just try to get that information better oriented on the page so the student's able to read their writing and the teacher's able to read their writing. Because at least if they're able to phonetically spell the word out, if there's spaces between the words, the teacher's going to be able to figure out what they're trying to say. The second thing that we address then is the letter formation. And then, like I said before, at the same time, I'm supplementing all this with the instruction and assistive technology, and that's the speech to text, the word prediction, and then also using like a snap type app because I don't want students to lose the joy of expressing themselves. We always talk about you have a lot to say, you have a lot of things going on, you have a lot of thoughts in your head. There's two ways to get them out. You have to say them or you have to write them. So we work on all those different ways so that they don't forget the joy of learning. With the spacing, I just have another resource here real quick. A lot of folks like to use this like stop and go paper. I've had limited success with it because, again, my students that have lack of spacing, it's more due to that lack of impulse control with the ADHD. So a lot of times, even with like a paper like this, stop and go or ready space, they just kind of blow through it and they're not consistent with it. But if you want to try it, there's a great resource at www.do2learn.com, and they've got 3 sizes available, and it's a PDF, and it's really easy to print, and so you can see they have a small, medium, and large. So it is a nice resource. I haven't had a whole lot of success with it yet, or over the course of the years. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But anyway, we're going to talk more about some of these issues, and I'll give you more specific examples and how my students are progressing at Ask the School OT. Thanks again.